ever wondered what chemicals are used to make your favorite products, keep wondering. Most manufacturers don't want you to know what's actually inside. In Latin, it's called caveat emptor. Buyer beware. I'm just trying to find out what kind of chemical they would put on a kid's pajamas.
This information is considered proprietary to the company.
Chemical used to manufacture many of the products that we use every day are never tested to find out if they're harmful.
You as a parent even know that it was in a product you were buying for your child.
That's actually the biggest problem of all.
My blood contains 175 chemicals linked to cancer.
This is a love story. A mystery.
The chemicals that are in the environment that are in our everyday products end up in our body.
A crime drama. Chemicals are not tested in the lab to ensure they're safe. They are tested on all of us. A wake-up call.
In the 1960s, a woman's lifetime risk of breast cancer was about 1 in 20. Today, it's 1 in 8.
For those who have cancer, everything that can be done by government.
A disease that has touched the life of nearly every American.
You're just dumping all this toxic stuff into your bloodstream.
And a farce.
I take offense when anyone would even insinuate that our industry, is supporting an increase in the body burden of chemicals.
Where do you think we're headed?
People think if something's in my shampoo or my toothpaste or my chair, surely someone is making sure it's safe.
No one's made sure that it's safe.
It's my story,
A consumer warning this morning at Justice stores.
but it could be yours. I remember coming home late one night. She was 8 months pregnant, and I heard a strange noise coming from the bathroom. I found her reading the label on every tube and bottle, and then tossing most of the products right in the garbage. At the time, I didn't give it much thought. But now that we're on our own, I understand. Heather was just trying to protect us.
Won't you be seated, please? We are here today for the purpose of signing the Cancer Act of 1971.
President Richard Nixon started the war on cancer by appointing a prestigious panel of scientists to examine the disease.
For those who have cancer, they at least can have the assurance that everything that can be done by government now will be done.
Over the next 4 decades, scientific panels have produced the president's report to identify chemicals that increase Americans' risk of cancer. Heather died from cancer in 2009. The same year, the president's report emphasized that cancer risks due to toxic chemicals were grossly underestimated, and that these chemical exposures are devastating American lives.
A disease that has touched the life of nearly every American.
In the 1960s, a woman's lifetime risk of breast cancer was about 1 in 20. Today, it's 1 in 8. That's a dramatic jump. So when you're talking about environmental causes of breast cancer, we're talking about a lifetime of exposures, not just, as young women, as, pubescent girls, as school-age girls, as toddlers and infants, even in utero. All those chemical exposures affect our lifetime health outcomes.
Natural fragrance makers often list their ingredients on product labels. But if anyone did want to find out what synthetic chemicals were used in a fragrance, they couldn't. Companies can claim those ingredients as a trade secret.
So the sense of smell is very, very secret because the industry kept it as a black box, but also because it's very, very complex to study. People are not educated to read formulas, and there is no intellectual property coverage or protection.
Most fragrance companies couldn't patent their formulas, so they were recipes. There was a formula vault. Looks like a bank vault. All the formulas are sacrosanct. They're held in that vault. Very few people in the organization were allowed access to them because they're recipes.
Thank you for calling Tide.
Hi, I read an article online yesterday, and it said something that it has a chemical in it called 1,4-dioxane that might cause cancer. I just wanted to make sure that is not true.
It's not something that we add to the product, okay? It's something that's in the product. And it...
Could you tell me who adds it then?
Pardon me?
You said you didn't add it. I was wondering who does add it.
It's in all of the ingredients. You know what I mean?
No, I don't.
Okay. How can I say this? You know, if you do 1,200 loads of wash a day, it's still at the safe level. But everything causes cancer nowadays. You know what I mean?
Right. I'm just trying to avoid those things that do cause cancer. But instead of reformulating to make safer products that could cost a little more, the industry opened up a new front on the war on cancer. But this wasn't a fight to get carcinogens out of products. It was a fight to keep them in. The industry foot soldiers in this well-financed campaign come from organizations called trade associations. These trade associations represent corporations intent on repelling any chemical regulation.
The biggest problem with Washington is just the special interest money that corrupts the process. And it's most embodied in the American Chemistry Council, the trade association, which almost acts like a political party, a fierce little, a communist cell or something.
The American Chemistry Council, or ACC, is one of the most powerful trade associations anywhere. The ACC spends hundreds of millions of dollars to influence public opinion, fund political campaigns, and underwrite aggressive lobbying efforts, all to avoid regulation that would impact the profits of the largest chemical companies in the world.
These companies, have it down. They're going to do whatever it takes to feed their bottom line. And of course they're going to lobby against any kind of legislation that's going to legislate that they have to stop. They don't want to.
Congressman Lance, wonder if you have time to talk about the Cosmetic Safety Act?
The Cosmetic Safety Act?
Yes.
Yes, certainly, yeah.
Well, I just want to know why you introduced the bill.
Because I want to make sure that we have appropriate regulation.
Do you think that consumers have a right to know if there's a carcinogen in a personal care product?
Yes, I do.
But under your bill, they would be able to put ingredients in there and not have to disclose they're in there.
I want to make sure that everything is appropriately identified, and I want to work with all of those who are interested in this issue.
What about the fragrance loophole that allowed people to put styrene or formaldehyde and not have to disclose that?
I'm certainly willing to discuss ways to make sure that your views are concerned.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And what is your name?
My name is John Whalen.
Where are you from, John?
New York. Do you think that companies should have to prove ingredients are safe before they expose them to women and children?
I certainly think that we should have a regime that protects the American people.
Would you be able to answer that question?
I want to make sure the public is completely protected.
What was your inspiration to author the Cosmetic Safety Amendment Act?
I want to work with all of those involved to make sure that the American people are completely protected.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
The biggest reason why the chemical industry fights transparent and public knowledge about the hazards of its chemicals is because of liability claims. It doesn't want to pay for harm.
I think of my life with Heather all the time. I remember one morning, while Heather was going through chemotherapy, I saw her planting tulip bulbs in a neglected sidewalk flower bed outside my office window. That's what she always did. She left things better than she found them. Heather wanted the girls to remember her in an enchanted place, surrounded by color and light. So we transformed an empty studio apartment into her pink and periwinkle sanctuary, full of life, love, and hope. But we didn't get to enjoy it long enough. Heather died here 6 days later. We were all by her side. Congressman Cal Dooley, a 7-term representative from California, proved himself a reliable soldier for industry.
Well, thank you, Simon, and I'm once again trying to do the right thing.
Marshalling bills that benefited companies like Monsanto, Conagra, in the meat industry.
Genetically enhanced products are, in fact, been determined to be safe.
And being industry-friendly in Congress really paid off for Cal.
I really have the honor of representing over 350 food, beverage, and consumer products companies.
First, as the CEO of the Grocery Manufacturers Association, Congressman Cal became Calorie Cal, and his salary was supersized. Then Calorie Cal got promoted.
I'm Cal Dooley. I'm President and CEO of the American Chemistry Council.
Calorie Cal was now Chemical Cal.
We have a chlorine tree here.
My father also told me that when dealing with bullies, go after the biggest one. I couldn't resist. Hey, Cal, how you doing? John Whalen, nice to meet you. Do you think that Americans should know if there's a carcinogen or endocrine-disrupting chemical in their products?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where we have our regulatory agencies and EPA and FDA that are working with all stakeholders to get that type of information.
So you think it should be disclosed on the label, carcinogens and endocrine disruptors?
We think that every consumer product should comply with regulations that are created by EPA.
But under current law, that's not part of the regulations. Do you think they should disclose a carcinogen or endocrine disruptor on the label?
We have the EPA and FDA, industry, as well as consumers should rely on those regulatory agencies to make those determinations and what's the appropriate information that should be disclosed.
Right. What do you think some of the main benefits for consumers of undisclosed carcinogens and endocrine disrupting chemicals?
Well, it's not, the issue is complex. It's got to be dealt with on a science basis. If a product doesn't have an exposure of any type of chemical that might pose a health concern, which is being determined by FDA and EPA, then it shouldn't be required to be labeled, which is what Congress and policymakers have determined.
Don't you think that a parent has a right to know if there's a carcinogen in a product they're buying for a baby?
The hearing that we're having today is basically trying to modernize and reform the law so the regulatory agencies are doing a better job.
But that doesn't force the disclosure of carcinogens. People might want to know if there's a carcinogen in a product.
And that's where Congress has that authority.
Well, what do you think personally? Would you want to know if there's a carcinogen in a product you're buying?
We want to have the appropriate information that is disclosed that poses unreasonable risk to health and human health and environment.
I like to separate the safety and the transparency issue. People have a right to know if your risk can be subjective, but whether you're transparent, that's binary. You're either disclosing it or not. Why wouldn't you want people to know there's a carcinogen in the product they're buying?
We have to place a great deal of confidence with our regulatory agencies, be the Food and Drug Administration.
But how can we trust them if they don't even have the information? The FDA is not legally obligated to ask a company it regulates for a list of chemicals in their own products.
FDA has information on every chemical that is in a consumer product.
No, they don't.
Sure they do.
They do not. What about the fragrance loophole?
No, I don't represent them.
Well, they say it's a trade secret, so they don't have to disclose carcinogens and EDCs.
No, but even on a trade secret, they have the information.
Well, can we have a sit-down meeting and talk about the disclosure issue?
Yeah, well, if you can work with my staff.
Sure, great. Thanks, Cal.
The rise in autism, the rise in breast cancer, the rise in reproductive problems, the rise in certain childhood cancers, the increase of diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease, all have to be due to environmental factors. And if you map the increase of those diseases against the increased use and exposure to toxic chemicals, there's a pretty good match there.
Up until the 1970s, most home fires were caused by careless smokers. In response, government regulators asked the tobacco industry to come up with a self-extinguishing cigarette. They did, but there was one problem. It changed the taste. So Big Tobacco went to Big Chemical with a big idea. Why not change the couch and the mattress instead? And the flame retardant industry was born. Manufacturers infused these chemicals into everything, from furniture to electronics and children's products, including pajamas. The truth is, 7 billion tons of flame retardants saturate the industrialized world every year. On average, the typical home is doused with 4 pounds of this stuff. And today, kids have 5 times more of it in their bodies than their moms.
I've heard statements.
We're calling Justice. This is Devin. How may I help you?
Hi. For Christmas, my daughter received a pair of pajamas, and when she opened up the package, we were overwhelmed by the synthetic odor. I checked the website. It doesn't appear that it has this fragrance
and I wasn't quite sure what it was.
This